And here's why I'm at a crossroads when it comes to this game and prediction. I don't trust Georgia's offense, but I trust their head coach more in Kirby Smart. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope all of you are having a great week. If not, hope this video can make it a little bit better. And man, oh man, it is time for the Alabama versus Georgia preview. For obvious reasons, this is a very highly anticipated video. The first thing I want to say is Alabama and Georgia have two of the most passionate fan bases in all of college football. In the Southeast, I grew up in Alabama, I still reside here. We eat, breathe, sleep football, and it's on repeat. The Alabama fan base has treated me exceptionally well throughout my career on YouTube, and the same thing can be said for Georgia fans. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Georgia fans, so I just want to start on the video by saying that. Alabama and Georgia fans have really shown this channel a ton of love, and I'm extremely grateful. And you know what I just thought of? You know how we do the reaction videos on Saturday to all the big-time games? Well, somebody needs to hook me up with a box suite for the Alabama-Georgia game. Tell me that wouldn't be amazing to do the reaction video at the game in a box suite. Somebody send this video to someone very important at Alabama that can pull those strings and make that happen, because that'd be legendary for the channel. And it don't even got to be for the Georgia game. It could be any game. That's a little besides the point. Let's log back in. Getting that out the way, what I'm about to say next is arguably the most important part of this video, and I want to make it a focal point. There's going to be a lot of people previewing and predicting this game, and maybe they already have. But I firmly believe, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, unbiased, my preview and prediction is the most important. Whoa, hold on. I know what you're sitting there saying. Matt, come on, brother, you gotta be a little more humble than that. Sounds like you're tooting your own horn. Yes, I agree, you're 100% right. You could label that as me tooting my own horn, but just hear me out. Let me explain some things. Why do I think my prediction / preview video for the Georgia-Alabama game is the most valuable? It's because I've never missed. Yes, that is right. You heard me correctly. When it comes to picking the winner of the Alabama versus Georgia matchup, in the history of this channel, I've never missed. I've never got it wrong. Granted, they don't play every single year, but when they do play, like I said, haven't missed. So do as you please with that information. Now, I can't speak for you, but me personally, if a guy has never missed on something, I'd be a little more inclined to listen to what he's got to say. But that's just me. Maybe you're a little different, no problem with that. To each their own. Let me give you a quick refresher, though. Let's throw it back to 2022. We'll start there. Alabama has a miraculous comeback win against Auburn. They look terrible. They look atrocious. Bryce Young marches 99 yards down the field with 0 timeouts, ties the game. Bama wins an OT. John Mechie has a game-winning 2-point conversion. He hits the Crimson Crane. And Alabama, although, yeah, you beat Auburn, great comeback win, you're matched up with big and bad Georgia. Nobody, and I mean nobody, picked Alabama to win that game. And matter of fact, I remember people vividly stating Alabama was going to get blown out. Alabama didn't have the O-line to protect Bryce Young. They're not going to be able to score enough points against that Georgia defense. And Alabama's defense wasn't looking too hot. Although they weren't bad, they weren't looking outstanding. And I had arguably, I'd say, one of the most important, at least to me, one of the most memorable videos I've ever made on the channel. I don't think I'll ever forget this moment in my life because I remember all the backlash. I called it to a T, and the great thing is a bunch of you watching right now, you were here for that. It wasn't too long ago. I said Bryce Young and Jamison Williams was going to dice up that Georgia secondary, and not only am I picking Alabama to beat Georgia, upset them, I'm picking Bama to win by double digits. I don't even think it's going to be close. And back then, you got to think about it. Hindsight's 2020, but remember, I stated that when Alabama really should have lost to Auburn after barely putting up 3 points. Well, technically, they scored a touchdown at the end, but for 59 minutes of the game, they had 3 points against Auburn, and Auburn sucked. And when I tell you people were lighting me up in the YouTube comment section, Twitter, everywhere, I mean it. And what happened? Well, we saw it happen. Alabama, Bryce Young, and Jamison Williams did exactly what I thought they were going to do. Didn't just beat Georgia, they ran away with the game, like I predicted. A couple weeks later in the national championship game, guess who matches up again? Alabama and Georgia. And for the first time in my life, I picked against Nick Saban. I picked Georgia to win the rematch in the national championship, and we saw what happened. They won. So for all the people that's going to say, well, of course, Matt, you've never been wrong with the Alabama-Georgia game. Alabama always wins. No, they didn't win the national championship, and that's the year I picked against them. So don't try to come in here with all that because you're just wrong. Fast forward time into last season, we all remember that. I picked Alabama to win, and they won. And those are just the very recent matchups I wanted to touch on. And this isn't me making up some lie. These videos are documented on the channel, and that's the great thing about YouTube is there's documentation with a date on it. I say all that to say this, and I mean this humbly. I think I know a little something about this Alabama and Georgia matchup in game. One of the big things, though, that's different this year, and it does matter, is Nick Saban's gone and Alabama has a new coaching staff, which we're going to get to in just a second. This video might be pretty long, so get nice and comfy. Let's get to the game this year, though. And luckily for you, I'm not one of these nerds that brings up irrelevant and pointless stats. Like, for example, one stat that I saw on Twitter a few hours ago is people saying, oh yeah, well, Alabama, they have a top 10 scoring defense and offense in the nation. That's going to factor into the game. Like, of course Alabama has a top 10 offense and defense in the nation. They haven't played anybody. Stuff like that is just pointless because what you do against Western Kentucky, USF, and Wisconsin, it ain't going to translate over to playing Georgia. It doesn't matter. I try to simplify this stuff, and here's what we know right now. Alabama and Georgia are two great football teams. They're not good, they're great. You're going to have that one nerd. He's already wrote the comment. I can already see it. Well, technically, Matt, Georgia actually struggled offensively against Kentucky, so I don't know if they're a great team. Shut up, nerd. Like I was saying, Alabama and Georgia are two great teams. Last year, I said this before the game, and I said it after the game, and I still believe it. Georgia was better than Alabama. Alabama just beat them that day. And the only reason I picked Alabama to win is because there's something about Georgia. They just never play their A game against Bama, and Bama has their number. They're their kryptonite. But this year, the way things are looking right now, and we can only go off of 3 games apiece for each team, I'm not confident in stating that Georgia is a better team than Alabama from top to bottom. I'm not going to sit up here and say Alabama's better than Georgia, but with everything I've seen, I think I'd say it's even. And if I was a Bama fan, what I'd be feeling really good about heading into this game is you arguably have not even just a top 10 defense, but probably a top 5, top 6, top 7 defense. Don't get it twisted. People didn't think Alabama's defense was going to struggle or be bad this year, but I don't think they expected them to be this good this early. And I know Alabama hasn't played the greatest of great competition, but the way they look, they're flying all over the field. They look good. On the flip side for Georgia's defense, since I talked about Bama's, let's talk about Georgia a little bit. Well, here's all I'm going to say about that. It's Georgia. What is Kirby Smart known for? I'm not even going to say it. If you don't know what he's known for, I can't help you. Georgia always has one of the best defensive teams in the country, so right there, it's 1A, 1B, defensive-wise. As far as it goes for the offenses this year, I don't even think it's close. You got to give the edge to Alabama. Did they struggle against USF? Absolutely, but they didn't have 2 of their starting O-linemen. Those 2 linemen came back against Wisconsin, and Alabama had 0 penalties. They were like a well-oiled machine. They was hitting these big chunk plays. And that's one thing that would scare me if I was a Georgia fan. We'll talk more about this in just a second. Is Alabama, I believe they have the most plays over 20 or 30 yards, something like that. This Alabama offense is the definition of explosive. And you shouldn't be shocked about this because that's what Caleb DeBoer was known for at Washington, these big chunk plays. Alabama's offense last year, they were really good / great, but they weren't known for just hitting all these chunk plays. This year, though, it's a different story. That one drive that Alabama had before half against Wisconsin, Jalen Milroe, he just threw 2 marvelous passes. Just like that, you look up, game's over. Milroe is one of the best deep ball throwers in the nation, and when you have the weapons that he has around him, that is a recipe for success. I wouldn't be shocked if Alabama has 3 touchdowns against Georgia of over 25, 30 yards. Actually, I'll change that. I think Alabama could easily have 3 plays of 50-plus yards, whether that's rushing or passing. Since we're talking about Alabama's offense, we'll start with them. I think you know what to expect, and I don't want to talk about it too much. I think Jalen Milroe is not just one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. I think he's one of the best players in the nation. He's a phenomenal dual-threat quarterback. Alabama's running backs, I'm not going to hype them up because you know Alabama always has great running backs, similar to Georgia. Wide receivers, though. This is where things get interesting. So when you think of Alabama wide receivers, you've always thought of guys like Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, and the list goes on and on and on. Alabama really got spoiled there in that couple-year stretch where they had all those guys at once. Well, in the past couple of years, Alabama has actually not even been average at the wide receiver position. They've been struggling. Isaiah Bond was probably Alabama's wide receiver 1 last year with Jermaine Burton. They were 1A, 1B, but both of those guys didn't have over 1,000 receiving yards. The past couple of years, dating back to that 2022 championship where they lost because John Mechie was out with injury and Jamison Williams got hurt in the, I believe it was second quarter, Alabama at the wide receiver position hasn't been too good. This year, though, is a different story, and they might have a couple guys get 1,000 receiving yards. The one guy that I'm already sick and tired of people talking about, not because of him, it's because they always say this, Oh yeah, by the way, did you know he's 17 years old? I can't wait till he turns 18 so those announcers can quit saying that because it's already getting on my nerves. Despite his age, I think he is one of those next great Alabama receivers you talk about for the many years to come. He's great, man. That's all there is to it, and you could argue and say that he's Milroe's favorite target at this moment in time. One guy that's kind of, I don't want to say disappointed me because he's doing great blocking, but he hasn't received the ball much this year for Alabama, and he might be the fastest player on the team. That is Kendrick Law. That's going to be a player to pay attention to. He's been doing a lot of the dirty work, and I think he might have a bigger role in this game and some of the games throughout the season. I've talked enough about Alabama's offense. Let's talk about Georgia's. One thing that would concern me if I'm a Georgia fan is they haven't had over 170 rushing yards in a game this season. I found that to be rather intriguing because it's not like they're throwing for 400 yards per game. They haven't ran the ball well. Granted, Clemson and Kentucky, they have solid defenses, but you still didn't have over $170 against, who was it, Tennessee Tech? Carson Beck's been really good throughout his career, but I'm not throwing him in that great category just quite yet because I don't think he's a guy that can go out there and just beat Alabama by himself and throw for 400 yards. As an Alabama fan myself, I'll give you my perspective. I don't fear Carson Beck. For example, guys I feared as a Bama fan, Deshaun Watson, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, guys like that. And there's a couple others, but Carson Beck, not so much. Not to say that he won't go out there and just completely dice up the Alabama defense, but I don't fear him. He's more than capable of doing that, let me make it clear, but I haven't seen him do it quite just yet. To tell you the truth, I'm kind of worried about that Georgia offense. They do not look smooth. With Alabama, I think they're ready to go. They got all the kinks worked out. Everybody's healthy on the offensive line. With Georgia, though, nah, I don't feel the same way. Here's where I'm trying to go with this. I am not concerned with Carson Beck. I am concerned with Georgia's running game and the line of scrimmage. This kind of goes hand in hand with the trenches, but I think the X factor in this game, and we always do that on the channel when doing these previews, we have either one or multiple X factors, but in this game, I think there's only one X factor. The running game for both teams combined. Previous Alabama-Georgia matchups, the X factor has normally and always been the quarterback, whether that be Jalen Milroe, Stetson DoorDash Bennett, any of those guys. But this year, I'm not worried about the quarterbacks. I'm worried about the running game. I firmly believe whoever controls the line of scrimmage better and has more rushing yards, they win this ball game. I'm going to give you a great example of what I was talking about. In last year's matchup, although Georgia made a couple mistakes, Carson Beck almost had a flawless performance. 21 for 29, that's great. 240 yards, didn't have a touchdown or an interception. QBR of 84.3, that's amazing. And even with that performance, they still lost. It wasn't enough. On the flip side, Milroe, 13 for 23. It's okay. 200 yards, that's okay. 2 touchdowns, 0 INTs, QBR 75.8. Milroe didn't play spectacular, but played good enough to win the game. But here is the key for me at least. Georgia only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. They had 78 total rushing yards. Alabama, they weren't too much better. They had 41 carries for $114, but it was slightly better. And one thing that helps Alabama in the running game, and you probably know where I'm about to go with this, is Jalen Milroe. Milroe is an extra running back there, and he's another guy you got to account for. Carson Beck is not. Carson Beck may scramble, 2-3 times per game at max, but you ain't got to worry about him. You don't got to put a quarterback spy on him. With Milroe, he takes up another defender, and even if you do put a quarterback spy, he's one of the most athletic players in the country. He can get around him. But wait a minute. Hold on. There's one big element about all this that we haven't even touched on, and that's the head coach. Nick Saban is no longer the head coach at Alabama. There's a new sheriff in town, and as we all know, Kirby Smart, he coached with Nick Saban at Bama. He learned under him. And maybe that was a reason Georgia's always struggled at Bama, because it was in their head, oh, this is a Nick Saban-led Alabama team. He's the greatest of all time. Maybe that got to him. I don't know. Here's what I will tell you. This isn't to discredit Kellen DeBoer. It has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with Saban. These teams and programs do not fear Kellen DeBoer more than they fear Saban. Not even close. What made Nick Saban's Alabama team so legendary is there were no off Saturdays. You knew what you were going to get. You could trust them, and they were always going to show up. And that is the hardest part about coaching. Nick Saban has said it time after time after time. The hardest part about coaching college kids is getting them to show up every single Saturday. Alabama's players are going to be pumped up for this game, but I'm just saying that's something to think about. And here's why I'm at a crossroads when it comes to this game and prediction. I don't trust Georgia's offense, but I trust their head coach more in Kirby Smart. Does coaching experience and big-time game experience come into play here? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, it comes down to this for me. Coaches don't win football games. Players win football games. I don't care how good of a coach Kirby Smart is. He can draw up the best play ever, but if his players don't execute it, it doesn't amount to a hill of beans. And the same thing can be said for Kalen DeBoer. Talent for talent, this is an even matchup. I already believe Jalen Milroe is one of the best players in the nation, but for some other reason, other people don't. In this game, this Saturday, I think Milroe proves to the rest of the nation why you shouldn't be sleeping on him anymore, and he is one of the best players in the nation. I think he will take over, and it will get to the point where he drives that Georgia fan base, defensive coordinator, crazy. One thing I almost forgot to talk about is Kalen DeBoer has been drawing up a lot, and I mean a lot of design runs for Milroe, so watch out for that. I think Milroe might be the second leading rusher on Alabama's team Saturday, if not the leading rusher. I think Alabama's offense is a little bit better, and I know some people are going to say, oh yeah, Matt, you forgot to mention a home field advantage, and no, I didn't forget. It's just insignificant to me. I do not care about home field advantage. As a former athlete myself, I can tell you whether it's on the football field, the baseball field, the basketball court, home field advantage, it doesn't matter. When you're locked in a zone, you tune all that out. I already know that's going to drive some people insane, but I'm just telling you the truth. You can scream as loud as you want at your TV, and you can scream as loud as you want at the football game, but you have zero effect on any play. Do you really think when you're screaming on the 50-yard line, Milroe's even paying attention? No. That's going to be one of my hottest takes on the channel, but if you played sports, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Most players tune all that out, and it doesn't bother them. You might force some false start or something like that, but nothing major. And it doesn't even matter if my Alabama fans are trying to say home field advantage matters, because I'm picking Alabama anyways. I got Alabama beating the Georgia Bulldogs 31-20. Yeah, that's right. I think it's going to be a double-digit win. 31-20 is my score. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below about that.